So The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt has had its system requirements revealed by CD Projekt. At minimum, you will need an Intel i5-2500K at 3.3 GHz or an AMD Phenom 2 X4 940, as well as a GeForce GTX 660 or a Radeon HD 78070, depending on which hardware manufacturer you prefer. You will also need 6 GB of DDR3. Well, they didn't say DDR3, but that's pretty much what they mean. No one really uses anything besides DDR3 unless you have a very old computer. It's cheap. There's no reason not to bother with it. As well as 64-bit Windows 7, Windows 8, or Windows 8.1 if you're going with that, DirectX 11, and 40 gigabytes of hard drive space. 40 gigabytes? What the hell is up with developers nowadays? Throwing such absurd numbers. Mind you, I do have over a terabyte of free space on my computer, but it's just ridiculous, especially because many people go with SSDs in this day and age, and SSDs cost a lot more than a regular hard drive, and you want to install games on an SSD because they just run better loading time wise. And there's also other benefits you get with SSDs that you just don't have with a regular hard drive. So any AAA game that comes out, you want to run that on an SSD as opposed to a regular hard drive. So that's just quite annoying because it means that you have to constantly install and reinstall games, you know, depending on what you want to play because you're lacking in hard drive space. Now, the minimum system requirements, I'd say, are pretty high considering everything, especially the RAM requirement. Very few games would ask 6 GB in terms of RAM. Very few, except if you're Call of Duty and you just throw an arbitrary figure out there just because you're full of shit. Call of Duty goes, yeah, I'm looking at you. But outside of that, outside of developers doing some bullshit, it's very rare to see a game requiring this much RAM for the minimum system requirements. Though I'm pretty sure the RAM will be used to load all the all the assets in an area or in a cell because it's an open world game. In a cell because open world games are rendered in cells, and the more we move, some cells stop being rendered, others start being rendered. That's how it works. So to not have loading times, I guess that's why they're asking for so much RAM. But yeah, GTX 660 and an Intel i5-2500K. Now that's interesting. Pretty high there. Though it's not actually that expensive to get a computer with those kind of system requirements. Join the PC Master Race. Play this game on the platform it deserves to be played on. Yeah, pretty high for minimum. And that's my personal stance on it. From other companies, when it comes to this, I'd say that system requirements wouldn't mean jack shit, but from CD Projekt, there's reasons to believe that they will deliver a good experience if you have a computer that they say you should have. Recommended system requirements: an Intel i7-3770 at 3.4 GHz, an AMD FX 8350 at 4 GHz, and then a GeForce GTX 770 or a Radeon R9 290, as well as 8 GB of RAM and 64-bit Windows 7, Windows 8, 8.1, DirectX 11, and 40 GB of space. Now, recommended system requirements are surprising as well because they're actually quite reasonable for a game that looks this good, at least based on the VGX trailer that we had and the Sword of Destiny trailers. It looks amazing. Like, I had discussion with a former friend of mine about this, and he said that it's the best game that he had ever seen, and he is a graphics artist. He's studying to become a game developer, 3D artist specifically, and he said he was amazed by the quality in those, the visual quality in those trailers, and yet they throw these system requirements when there's games that look considerably worse than what we saw in trailers of The Witcher 3 that have higher system requirements or simply run like ass. Now, in the case of CD Projekt, I'm willing to believe that the game will be well optimized. Why? Because Witcher 2 was very well optimized. Witcher 2 is the best looking game on DirectX 9 at 32-bit. Now, I'm not saying it's the best looking game ever made just making a point there. But games that look better than The Witcher 2 on a technical level, that is artistic, that's subjective. But on a technical level, there's no game that looks better than The Witcher 2 on a 32-bit machine. Now, 32-bit versus 64-bit, well, it's a difference of how much memory you can use. You couldn't use like 6 gigabytes or even 4 gigabytes on a 32-bit machine because it's limited to 2 gigabytes. You can increase it to about 3, I believe, but yeah, just some problems. There are memory limitations. So for the DirectX 9 title at 32-bit, Witcher 2 was amazing. Well, very well optimized. Some people said, oh, there's titles that are more optimized. There's no title that looks that good that's as well optimized as The Witcher 2. Like, there's a lot of foliage. There's a huge forest in the fucking game. And yet, even when it came out on reasonable systems, on the system requirements that they provided, the game ran very well on the high settings. I'm talking ultra without uber sampling. Like, uber sampling was not designed, the game was not designed to run well with uber sampling. In fact, even now, if you have a high-end computer, it's very difficult to actually run the game with uber sampling enabled at the steady 60 FPS at 1080p. But without that, you could run the game at 1080p at 60 FPS, no problem whatsoever. I'm hoping that the recommended system requirements mean that if I have a computer as good as what they're asking for, and I actually have it slightly better because I have a GTX 780, then that means I will be able to run the game at 1080p at 60 FPS, which, I still have some doubts with that. I've actually asked them on Twitter, will we be able to run the game at 60 FPS? At what resolution are these system requirements for? At what frame rate? They haven't replied to that. They're probably getting a lot of messages now. There's, I've checked the forums, the Witcher boards, and there's a lot of messages there going as well. Very few posts by the developers right now. You can't expect them to dive right in the middle of something like that because everyone will demand an answer pretty much from them. But yeah, somehow surprising. I expected higher system requirements, at least in terms of recommended, and I actually expected lower in terms of minimum, but I was surprised. I'm actually quite surprised by this. We'll see what they do. There was and there still is a discussion about visual downgrade in the latest trailer, the Elder Blood trailer. And it's pretty obvious that there is a visual downgrade. Let's not even get into, oh, there's no visual downgrade. No, if you can't see it, then you're fucking blind. That's my personal stance on it. If you can't see it in that trailer versus VGX or even Sword of Destiny, which actually had footage from a number of trailers, footage from certain builds, like older builds, newer builds, you can notice that in the hair specifically, like in certain portions of that trailer, the hair was simulated, in others it just didn't move at all. You can notice that they were using footage from various builds, but even that looked considerably better than what we got in Elder Blood. Elder Blood trailer looks like absolute shit in comparison to those trailers. So I don't know, hopefully we'll get the graphics we saw in the previous trailers, like the VGX trailer especially, which looked amazing. But, there's just certain doubts. And there was a NeoGAF post, there was about the developers crunching for over half a year in The Witcher 3. There's the delay of The Witcher 3. There's certain concerns there. But we'll see. We'll see what CD Projekt delivers. I'm not going to say that you should blindly trust a company or you should trust CD Projekt. Never trust a company. Especially never trust a company that has never made a game that came out without any bugs, glitches, or issues when it launched. Both Witcher 1 and Witcher 2 had significant issues when they launched. In terms of performance, in terms of bugs, in terms of glitches, etc, etc. Plenty of issues in both games. That's not to say that they weren't good games when they came out. I certainly believe they were excellent games, both of them. But they both had significant issues that took a lot of patches to fix, both Witcher 1 and Witcher 2. And certain issues with Witcher 1 are still not fixed to this very day. And they don't care to fix them right now. So, just be a bit skeptical there when it comes to CD Projekt being able to release the game that's perfect, that has no issues at launch, because their history doesn't indicate that. I guess they're trying to avoid that happening, The Witcher 3 being vastly, being a higher profile game than anything they've done before, and a lot of attention, a lot of eyes on that game. That's not to say that it wouldn't sell well, even if there were issues, but it's something that will have a significant impact on their image as a company if they do release Witcher 3 and it's as buggy, has as many performance issues as Witcher 1 and Witcher 2. So we'll see about that. Anyway, that's all I had to say. Costin here on Serious Gaming signing out. Don't forget to subscribe and like the video. Thank you all for watching, and stay tuned for more.